Are you listening to us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or any other platform where you can leave a rate or review? Do you like what we're doing? If the answer to all of that is yes, please consider quickly giving us a 5-star rate. And if you wouldn't mind leaving us a nice review, we greatly appreciate that as well. Okay, let's do this.
Hello, welcome to the Ghosts of Harrenhal. My name's Simon.
And I'm Mackelly.
Thank you for joining us for episode 329 of our chapter-by-chapter book review of A Song of Ice and Fire by George R.R. Martin. Today, we'll be discussing chapter 57 of A Dance with Dragons, which is Tyrion 11.
And as always, we'll chat about the chapter and try not to spoil any future plot points for you, unless, of course, you have a Buy Me a Coffee Sustainer tier that includes spoilers. Well, then, if you listen to the spoiler episode, we are going to spoil things for you, but regardless, hopefully we'll provide you some entertainment along the way.
We'll summarise what happened, discuss our thoughts on it, provide some useful background, compare it to the television show, indulge in a little pedantry and cover some relevant news and listener correspondence. Be sure to check out the show notes. They'll provide some additional information about the characters and geography of this chapter. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. I tried to enjoy the beautiful weather we had today as much as possible.
Segueing into my first story of the evening.
Oh,
perfectly
okay.
done. You did not know that, but that was exactly what I was going to say. I was going to say the seasons change here sooner than they do in a lot of places. I'm sure a lot of our more northerly listeners are still feeling the effects of winter, but today spring very much sprung in North Carolina. It was lovely and warm.
Beautiful.
So, because I leave the house before Carson wakes up, I like to lay out my clothes for the following day in advance.
Yep. Uh-huh. Makes sense.
So I have like one sort of half cupboard where I keep my bottom halves, my
your pants and such.
My pants, exactly. And so basically it consists of like shorts and long trousers. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And it's always crammed to the gills. So about 8 weeks ago, I
don't know where this is going, but
about 8 weeks ago, I decided this is stupid. It's the middle of winter. I don't need my shorts here.
Right. Yeah.
So I took my shorts out of there, and now it is much more capacious, and I can actually go through things and pick, instead of having to just take the top one out.
Right, yeah. It's the only one you can
actually
get.
Choose which one I want to do.
Yeah.
So today I went to get my shorts, and I was like, oh, yeah, that's right, they're not here. I can't find them.
You don't know where you put all of your shorts.
I have no shorts. I can't find them anywhere. I could only think of 2 possible places where they could be, and I've looked in both places, and they're not there.
What? It's one thing to misplace, I don't know, like keys or something, but your entire wardrobe of shorts is another.
Well, I mean, my entire wardrobe of shorts was like 5 pairs of shorts.
Okay, well, yes.
So I thought maybe I'd squeeze them in with my soccer stuff, but no, they weren't there. And then we have a walk-in closet, which is kind of like, yay wide.
Yeah.
And above, so there's a rack where things hang, and above that rack, there's a shelf where my wife has a bazillion things, and I have one little corner. And my little corner, I thought they must be there, but no, I went through the whole thing. It's not there. And that's the thing is, it's not like we've had a 6-month winter. It really was like 8 weeks ago, and I cannot remember what I've done with them. I can't begin to think of what I would do with them.
Right. If they're not in the logical places, where would you have possibly shoved them under the bed or something? Have you checked the room you're in? Maybe you put them in a closet in a different room.
This is my next port of call. Actually, is the spare? I'm recording from the spare room, and the spare room does have some closet space. So that is not an impossibility. But in the meantime, breaking news, listeners: Simon has a terrible memory.
No.
My other story comes from Lucas. Actually, he WhatsApped me yesterday, and he said, "Oh, Dad, are you watching the Atletico Madrid Barcelona game?" And it was like 2:00 in the afternoon. I'm like, "No, I'm working." And he responded, like very quickly. He responded, "Some of us can walk and chew gum," which reminded me of you working and watching the Olympics.
Yeah. Well, hey, you can have it on in the background if you don't necessarily need volume. So
I don't get a lot of respect from my son, I don't think.
That was a pretty witty comeback by Lucas.
I know.
I'm impressed.
He's turning into something, that kid.
Yeah, I like it.
Can I say we had a fantastic sustainer call last night? That was really, really good. We had a great time. Everyone was on fine form. We were telling funny stories.
Absolutely.
It was like a live podcast. Interactive.
And you told a story that you told me right after we stopped recording last week. And I was like, that was a hilarious story. Why did you not tell that while the mics were hot? So you told it to our sustainers. And,
that's how we do it, you see. We save up the best stuff.
And I got an update because last week you had...
Yeah, update to my funny story wasn't so funny, was it?
No, it really wasn't.
Miserable. The update to the update, still miserable, no progress.
No sunglasses have been found. Yeah, we had a really good time. It was a good crew. It always is a good crew. It always is a good time, but it was especially good. And, it was a pretty full house. Both of us were in attendance.
Yeah, it was amazing how every single one of us had a 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon to Mandy Moore.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Everyone. We all knew her.
That was shocking in one way or
another.
Like
we'd all been at the same party at some point.
Maybe. Yeah, that was something. I didn't expect that. Of all the people, Mandy Moore.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glomming on. I have no connection with
No, me either. Our connection is that we are friends with someone who has a connection. So it's pretty loose, but
we were on a sustainer call with a guy who knows Mandy Moore.
Yeah, it was fun. I enjoy those. I look forward to them. It goes by so fast.
Yeah, it does.
We don't get it. It doesn't. Zoom doesn't tell us when it's about to be over, so I have to keep an eye on the time. Yeah. And I look up and I'm like, oh goodness, there's only 3 minutes left.
Yeah. Sometimes with your over blathering on the podcast, I do wonder if we should do it on a Zoom call with the hard deadline.
Right, a hard stop.
Yeah. And next week we got...
We'd be lucky to get that far.
No, yeah, I was joking.
All right, it's time for spoilers. Oh, that's it.
Yeah. How did we leave Tyrion Lannister?
Well, speaking of that...
Sing us out, Simon. Sing us out. Well, anyway, yes, let's get down to business. How did we leave Tyrion Lannister? The last we saw of Tyrion, he was jousting with Penny before Queen Daenerys and those in attendance at the Great Pit of Daznak. If not for Dany's interference, he and Penny would have been set upon by lions during their act. Prior to that, he, Penny, and Jorah Mormont were bought by the Yunkish slaver Yezzan Zo Qaggaz to add to the man's grotesquerie. Mackelly, why don't we give the summary of this one?
All right. Well, Jorah technically wasn't bought to be added to the grotesquerie.
Very true. Although, read on.
Yes. Well, the great Yezzan Zo Qaggaz lays dying of the bloody flux. A healer insists that Yezzan's slaves get their master clean water from the well, not from the river. Fellow slave Sweets tends to Yezzan's general needs, but it has fallen to Tyrion and Penny to wipe his substantial behind. A task made more challenging because Yezzan doesn't have the strength to even roll over.
Tyrion actually feels bad for Yezzan. He's not so bad as far as slavers go. He's one of the few Yunkish nobles who favour keeping the peace with Meereen and outright refuse them sending the Meereenese hostages back via trebuchet, as some had suggested. Most of the Yunkish nobles are merely biding their time until the Volantene fleet arrives. However, a few want to begin an assault on the city before the Volantenes arrive.
We'll be right back.
Hello, friends. Are you ready to make some unforgettable memories? Well, if so, consider the Marriott Bonvoy program. Discover the perfect destination for your summer getaway and unlock exclusive deals on luxurious accommodations. With our affiliate partnership, you'll enjoy unbeatable savings and a seamless booking experience. Don't let summer slip away. Visit Marriott Bonvoy today and make this vacation season one for the books. Use our Ghosts of Harrenhal affiliate page to check it all out and buy Bonvoy points or give some as a gift. The link to our page is in the show notes. Sweet says the master must not die, stroking Yezzan's brow. Tyrion understands why Sweets feels that way. As Yezzan's most favored slave, he has been pampered and spoiled, something that has not gone unnoticed by the less favored slaves. Tyrion believes that when Yezzan dies, Sweets will be the first to be killed by the others.
Tyrion announces that he and Penny will get the water. There's nobody else to run that plan by. Their overseer nurse died the day before. When Nurse's cramps began, a few mushroom slivers added to his soup ensured he did not recover. Tyrion's last words to Nurse were, "A Lannister always pays his debts."
You'd think with how long those have been in his shoes, that Nurse might have noticed a tinge of
True. It's a good point. Oh, perhaps when they went in, they were just ordinary mushrooms and they came out deadly poison.
Yeah, that could be. Well, Penny wants to know what will happen to them if Yezzan does die. Yezzan has nephews, but one died, and the other three made for home at the first sound of the pale mare's hooves. To Penny's horror, Tyrion adds that they'll likely be sold to another slaver. Tyrion commands that a big, dumb slave soldier named Scar get Yezzan some water. When that's met with the man's backhand, Tyrion changes tactics, begging the man to help so that the master doesn't die. That has the intended result. He sends Tyrion and Penny to fetch Jorah to help carry the pails.
Jorah is almost unrecognizable as his face is so badly disfigured due to the daily beatings at sunset. He's a shell of a man. Tyrion thinks he should have let Zarina buy Jorah on the auction block. He would likely be dead, which might be an improvement over being dead inside. After Jorah is released from his cage, the knight sullenly follows Tyrion towards the well.
The trio has little to fear from other slaves or slavers. Their collars signified them as Yezzan's property. As the richest man in Yunkai, with the largest soldier present in this host, nobody is going to interfere with their business. Tyrion notices efforts to elevate the scorpions, so as to better attack the dragon should he return. Tyrion chuckles to himself. They should save their energy. Unless a bolt catches Drogon's eye, it's more likely to make him angry than anything else.
The trio pass legions of slave soldiers training, and when they finally reach the line for the well, it stretches a quarter mile. Tyrion cannot help but think that the well's presence shows what a novice Dany was to siegecraft. His father would have poisoned all the wells within a day's march of Meereen, leaving only the river for drinking water. The siege would end before it began if that had been the case.
Tyrion is musing over his misfortune to end up in Meereen when young Griff and his companions were likely in Westeros by now, when he hears talk in front of him. A man is telling of how he was at the pit when the dragon came. He saw the queen hit by a bolt in her chest and fall to her death. Tyrion can't help but point out that no body was found. The slaves in the discussion recognize Penny and him as the performers from the fighting pit.
They want to know if the queen is as beautiful as they say. Tyrion recalls seeing a slender girl in a toga. However, it was the knight in white and gold behind her that caught his eye. He would know Barristan Selmy anywhere. Tyrion had thought of revealing his identity, but wondered how Selmy would react. The knight was never a fan of Jaime before or after Jaime broke his Kingsguard vow. Before he could decide, the moment passed.
Tyrion admits they never saw the dragon. They had been clapped back into their chains just as the dragon appeared. He also realized, by Nurse's surprise at seeing them, that they were never supposed to return from their joust. And after the animal trainer complained that the lions were hungry and it's the queen's fault they were never fed, he realized what their fate was to have been. A realization he never shared with Penny.
The old slave goes on about how he would not give up his collar even if the queen offered him sexual favours. He's known his master since his master was born and is like a brother to him. Tyrion does not argue. One thing he's learned is how easy it is to become complacent about one's captivity. The average slave's life is not so very different from the life of the average small folk in Westeros.
After the trio finally reaches the well and retrieves their water, Tyrion starts them back on a different path than the one they just took. Penny becomes increasingly concerned as they weave further away from Yezzan's tent. However, it's not until they arrive at the tents of the Second Sons that she grasps what's happening. Tyrion says, Yezzan's dying and Nurse is dead. This might be their only chance for escape.
Penny worries about Crunch and Pretty, but Tyrion lies and says that Sweets will take good care of them. He knows they will likely be eaten the moment after Yezzan dies. Penny fears the repercussions if they are caught, but follows along when Tyrion walks into the sellsword camp.
When they are brought to Brown Ben Plum's tent, the sellsword captain wants no trouble with their master. However, when Tyrion explains that Yezzan is dying and Tyrion is offering Ben a second chance to throw in with Tyrion, Ben listens. Tyrion explains that he knows the history of Ben's house and he knows why Dany's dragons took to him so well.
This revelation surprises Ben, and he wants to know who told Tyrion that. Tyrion says he knows his dragon lore, and he knows that Ben has likely more than one drop of Targaryen blood in him. He also knows that Tyrion's own head is worth a lordship in Westeros, but that it's a long journey, and Cersei will play him false in the end. When Jorah calls out Ben's two companions by name, all three men are shocked to realise who he is. His facial swelling and bruising have disguised him.
Tyrion says that he can be very generous to his friends. Just ask Bronn, Shagga, and Timett. As Ben doesn't have a clue who those men are, Tyrion explains that they were men who pledged themselves to him and were well rewarded for it. Tyrion asks for the Syvas table, but first wine. He clearly has a deal more talking to do.
We knew that the bloody flux was terrorising the Yunkish host, and here's proof if it's reached the inner sanctum of the lords and masters, then it's definitely
it's not just the rank and file.
Right, yeah.
It'll be a miracle if one of this trio doesn't get sick, especially with Tyrion and Penny responsible for wiping Yezzan.
Yeah.
That's but it clearly doesn't seem to be an issue with access to wealth or water because Yezzan has both. And you're the dysentery expert, but I believe you said it's cured by clear water, by clean water. I mean, right?
Yes. I mean, you don't need much medicine to survive dysentery. You just need clean water. That's if you've got ample access to clean water, you'll pull through dysentery because it's just you rinse it out of your system and then you get better.
Okay.
But if you keep drinking dysentery water, you're going to die.
So maybe 5 or so buckets of. Well, let's see. There was 4. There was 8. 8 buckets of water. Might have been enough, possibly.
True. If the buckets were clean. I mean, this is the thing, you see.
Yes, true.
If those buckets had ever. If they'd thrown the wipings of his butt into those buckets, then you're back to square one.
Or what if they had used it for river water, those buckets previously? I wonder if that might have contaminated them.
I don't know how virulent it is. I don't know how robust it is to that kind of situation, but dangerous. So, it's not easy. But at the same time, there's clearly enough knowledge going around that you'd think that the lords and masters would be very careful.
Yeah, it makes me wonder if maybe there's something going on with the well water. Tyrion mentions that, you just read it in the summary, that Daenerys shows her inexperience at siegecraft because she didn't poison the wells. But first of all, I think she didn't do that because she had the Astapori refugees outside of her walls for so long and wouldn't have wanted to poison the wells for them. And I don't know how much time there was in between.
Yes, and think about it this way. Tyrion Lannister would have poisoned them too.
Yes, he absolutely would have. Yes, he would not have cared.
Yeah.
He would have.
And the other thing is, the bloody flux came before the siege began, but not by a long way. So there wasn't really a sense necessarily that the river wasn't going to be safe to drink. So
true. Yeah.
What's the point poisoning the wells if the river provides as much clean water as they want?
Yeah. And by the time the river was known to not be safe to drink, there was a siege outside her walls.
Yeah.
No opportunity to poison them then.
Yeah. So out of the frying pan into the fire, you'd think if a slave master dies, that might be good news for the slaves, but it doesn't seem that way. But certainly Penny and Tyrion are a sort of protected class because they are part of his grotesquerie. But no guarantee that his nephews would want a grotesquerie. So
Right. Yeah.
things could go badly for them. And clearly, Mormont isn't endearing himself to anyone. He's not even trying very hard to join in the as the bear when they act out the bear on the Maiden Fair, which was the reason he was taken, by Yezzan. So he's not doing himself any favors. So if they stayed put and Yezzan died, I think probably they'd all three get sold.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, if they could go free, of course, that would be better.
Right.
But likely they'll be sold to a new unknown slaver. And as Tyrion reiterates several times in this chapter, as slavers go, Yezzan is one of the better to be owned by, I guess. And along those lines, it's likely a bad outcome for Sweets, because Sweets is the favored, indulged, specially treated slave, and the rank and file slaves hate him for that.
Yeah. But Sweets has a special characteristic that might appeal to somebody somewhere, so...
Oh, well, yeah, maybe.
The one thing is, of course, is that there'd be a serious power vacuum if Nurse is already dead.
Yeah.
And Yezzan dies, and the three nephews have run away. There is no one to sort of guard them. There's no one to sort of like rule at this point. So
yeah.
I do wonder if the whole lot of them might escape.
We'll be right back.
This episode is sponsored by Audible. To get a free audiobook, or two if you're an Amazon Prime member, go to our exclusive URL, audibletrial.com/ghostsharrenhal. You can find the link in our show notes. Yeah, I guess it depends. I guess it depends on a lot of factors. If any other slavers catch wind of Yezzan dying, they might send... Yeah, a lot of factors, I guess. But it's possible that a lot could sneak out, just like Tyrion, and Penny, and Jorah are doing here.
Right. Because, the one thing you might expect is some nearby slave owner to step in and say, all right, you're under my charge until I get you back to young Guy when I'll give
what I was getting
you'll
at,
be distributed. Yeah. But even then, the one thing is, of course, is that Penny and Tyrion are so noticeable.
Yes. That is the...
Jorah could walk off and nobody would miss him, but the two of them would be missed. Or not necessarily missed, but noticed elsewhere.
Right, yeah. And speaking of Nurse being dead, so we mentioned in the summary that Tyrion was feeding Nurse Dogtail soup with slivers of mushrooms, and that his last words to Nurse were, "A Lannister always pays his debts." And so it's not explicitly stated, but it seems pretty clear that Tyrion used those poisonous mushrooms that he found at Illyrio Mopatis's manse and had held in his shoe for all this time. He put them in Nurse's soup to finish Nurse off. But so my question for you is, do you think that the initial sickness began with Tyrion poisoning Nurse to make it look like he had the bloody flux, or he saw an opportunity with Nurse coming down with contracting the bloody flux and wanted to finish him off and make sure he didn't survive?
I assumed the second of those two things until you told me the first of those two things. And then you made me think, well, that's actually quite plausible, because the reason I think the first one is so plausible is because the second one feels like a waste of those mushrooms. You've gone to that much trouble to poison a guy who was almost certainly dying anyway.
Right. That was my thought as well. Yeah, it's unclear in the text, because the sentence begins with, "When the cramps began, the other treasures fled, leaving it to fall to Tyrion." But were the cramps initially caused because he slipped mushrooms into his soup, or the bloody flux?
Because, and I'll admit to this, when I first read it, I just thought that Tyrion was actually being nice to Nurse, that he was actually saying, I'm trying to help you here. A Lannister pays his debts. but it didn't make a lot of sense because I was like, well, he's never been nice to you.
Yeah.
I know what the Lannisters paying their debts means. It means they get their revenge. It means they don't ever pay any debts, but they get their revenge. That's what it means. But yes, yeah. So did he instigate the whole thing? Interesting.
Yeah.
Kind of. What would be? No, he got the bloody flux. It'd be too weird. It'd be too weird for the bloody flux to just break out all around him while you're poisoning him to make it look like he's got the bloody flux. Unless he's poisoning everybody.
Maybe when Yezzan got sick, Tyrion realized if we could get Nurse out of the picture, we could spring ourselves out of here.
Yeah.
And so he thought, because there's also a line about nobody look closely at the corpses right now because there are so many.
Right.
So
there might be some indication that this wasn't the bloody flux that killed him.
Yeah, maybe.
Interesting.
Yeah. Who knows? We don't.
So one of the things that gets mentioned is that Yezzan was one of the few Yunkish nobles who was going to honour the peace with Meereen. The rest were waiting for the volunteers to arrive so that they could storm the city, and some were even agitating to invade sooner so they didn't have to share the spoils with the volunteers.
Right.
So
yeah.
Qaggaz's information was solid then. I mean, we've already had this independently confirmed by Victarion, but now we're getting it confirmed that it's not just the volunteers coming. It's the volunteers are coming, and the Yunkai know it. They are in on the plan. But
yeah,
it does feel like with those three competing wishes within the Yunkai camp to honour the peace, to break the peace immediately to get the biggest share of the spoils, and to wait for the volunteers and then break the peace, that this would fall apart pretty quickly. I'm right. Surprised. I think actually only the bloody flux is stopping this from falling apart.
Yeah, maybe, because everybody is distracted by that situation.
Yeah. Which actually goes to Barristan Selmy's idea of trying to break out, because they're definitely unprepared and they're not all on the same page either. So possibly.
Yeah. We had discussed in that Barristan chapter, if the Yunkai knew that the Volantene fleet were incoming, would they have even bothered to sue for peace? It seems like they did know the Volantene were coming and did go ahead and sued for peace. But maybe the peace terms were simply to get Meereen to lower their guard even further. Which
maybe, yeah.
I don't know if that was really effective. Dany is still working to recruit sellswords.
Yeah.
So
if I make peace with the besiegers and they don't leave, I'm not throwing the doors open anytime soon,
Yeah, right.
Because they're still there. Yeah. Until they leave, it's still a siege until they leave, Maybe they're not actively throwing things at us, but they are building scorpions which could fire bolts into the city.
Yeah, and
unintentionally.
The thing is Qaggaz says that Hisdar is going to open the gates to them all and re-enslave the former slaves and enslave those who weren't slaves before. And that's a possibility, of course, that he could do that. Depends on what the discussions were when he met with the Yunkai contingent without anyone that's not one of his people around.
Yeah.
So, but thankfully Yezzan did refuse that the hostages being sent back via trebuchet. But I'm guessing that after that meeting that I just mentioned about with the Yunkai and Hisdar, that it might have only been 4 that were sent back that way, and not 3. Possibly those 3 might have not have been related to Hisdar.
Right. In my copy of the book, that sentence broke before it said by trebuchet. And so the first time I read it, I was like, wait, why would he refuse to send the hostages back? I thought we were just saying. I was like, oh, wait, by trebuchet. I see. I see what you're saying now. We get an interesting sort of look into the hierarchy of slavers and slaves in the Yunkish camp. That the soldiers feel like they're above the house slaves. And the slavers themselves have a hierarchy, obviously.
Yeah. Yezzan sits atop that. due to his wealth and the fact that he brought 600 slave soldiers with him, which is more than anybody else has. But yeah, even within the camp, slaves from different masters have a different level of hierarchy. So Yezzan's slaves have, are the most elevated of the slaves in the camp, and they can go anywhere without bother, and other slaves defer to them. And and then within a slaver's slaves, there is the hierarchy, like you said, that the soldiers think they're better than the house slave. The house slaves are better treated because they're, closer to the master. It's a whole thing.
I will say that hierarchy did not stretch to Tyrion and Penny being led to the front of the line for the water, though.
No, they had to wait in line just like everyone else.
Yeah.
But Tyrion makes a comment while they're in that line. No, I think it's when they're in that line that the parchment. Penny says the war is over, makes a reference to the war being over, and Tyrion thinks that he's unsure about that fact, and he thinks that parchments have been signed, but wars are not fought on parchment. And I thought that was ironic because it's the exact opposite of the statement that Tywin made to him when they were speaking, when he said some wars are won with like swords and spears, and some are won with quills and parchment, in the reference to him planning the Red Wedding and the Lannister Frey Bolton alliance. It's very opposite of that.
I will say that both of them are correct in the instances that they are describing.
Yeah.
Because
True.
Clearly Tywin won that by what he did at the Red Wedding. And clearly all the paper that's been signed around Meereen is absolutely worthless. I mean, pretty much every one of those sellsword companies has signed parchments to both sides.
Yeah.
So
Right.
so Tyrion is right. It will come down to the battle.
Yes, that is true.
Yeah. So Jorah definitely seems to have lost the will to live. He does pipe up right at the end of the chapter and sort of like shows that he's still in there, but in the meantime he's sort of like sullen, downtrodden. He's not looking for escape. He sort of like a mule, he follows Tyrion to the Second Son's camp, but he has not.
Yeah.
He didn't instigate any of this himself. So he's being beaten every night, and that's awful. I mean, if I get hit one time, I mean, like, I think the last time I was punched was like 30 years ago, maybe 35 years ago, and I still remember it. It was one punch.
That's slightly different than what Tyrion Jorah's going through.
I don't know if I've ever told you, but I don't have a great memory, but that I remember.
It's stuck. Maybe it's why you don't have a great memory for anything else. It's quite the fall. It's quite the far fall from grace, from going from Dany's Lord Commander of her Queen's Guard and most trusted confidant to where he is now. And I think it's Ben that says when he realizes who Jorah is, he says, "Do we still have to call you sir?" And Jorah said, "Hand me a sword and you can call me what you want." Mm-hmm. But Tyrion can relate a bit. He was once Hand of the King. He was in a relationship with Shay, married to Sansa Stark, and now he finds himself a slave right alongside Jorah. Now, of course, you could say this is all Jorah's fault because he got them into this mess in the first place, but...
Yeah, that's very true. One comment, actually, and I'm stealing, you made this point, actually, that Qaggaz definitely had some good intel, but he did say that the Yunkai should become lazy, but Tyrion and Penny walked past several groups of soldiers being drilled, so they're not completely taking their eye off the ball.
Right, I noticed, the Clanker Lords had their slaves training. They're called Clanker Lords because their slaves are chained together in groups of 10, so they can't, they can only flee if they all flee together, and they would do so very slowly. And the Nugis legions were they were working on their shield wall. I believe that's what that group was doing. So yeah, they're training. They're not completely just lounging about and dreaming of all the riches inside the city when they get in there.
Yeah, I wonder if they're part of the groups of people who are maybe thinking, let's get in Marine before the Volantines, and so they're trying to get sharp, because they want to be at the vanguard of that. Just a thought.
Yeah, yeah.
So Tyrion thinks back to when they're gossiping with the other slaves about what happened to Dany. Tyrion thinks back to it because they ask him, what did he see the queen? Was she as beautiful as they say, kind of thing? And he didn't really see her. She was wearing a veil and a toga. I didn't notice what she looked like. It was obviously her because she was blonde. But he noticed behind her was Barristan Selmy. And it must have been quite a moment for Tyrion, because he could have just dropped his sword and say, hey, Barristan Selmy, look down here. Who's this guy?
Yeah.
Now, right. Here's what would have happened. Okay. The first thing that would have happened is the crowd would have started booing and shouting for bring in the lions. And then the second thing that would have happened, Barristan Selmy would have had to do one of two things. One, go, my queen, this is Tyrion Lannister. We must have him amongst our small council. Or two, yeah, you're right. Let's set the lions on that guy.
Aha. Yes. That's right. Yeah.
Because
she might have done a 180 with the whole no lions thing.
Right. Because Tyrion, he's absolutely right that Barristan would have no love for him. He wasn't a fan of Jaime. I didn't know he wasn't a fan of Jaime before Jaime's oath breaking.
Right.
That's what Tyrion says.
He felt that Jaime was too young to be a member of the Kingsguard at I think it was 15 or something really young like that.
But didn't Barristan knight Jaime?
No, I think Aerys did it himself at the tournament at Harrenhal.
But obviously they didn't like Jaime after the oath breaking, because it was both dereliction of duty and breaking your oath.
Yeah, although he did think to himself, just in this last chapter when we were inside his head, that maybe Jaime was more right than Barristan had given him credit for.
You, me, and Barristan know that, but Tyrion does not.
Yes, that's true.
Tyrion does not know the nuanced Barristan that we know. He just sees the unbending, unflinching Barristan Selmy of tales. So yeah, I when I thought about that moment, and I thought about, wow, Tyrion really could have got himself out of this mess, I thought about it more, and I was like, I think I would have done the same thing as Tyrion. I think I would have just kept stum.
Yeah, I can't imagine, even in general, Barristan has a really high opinion of Tyrion. I don't know how much time Tyrion spent in King's Landing before this, the series of events that start this book began. But his personality is not one that you would think Barristan would be amused by.
No, and Tyrion believes that Barristan is a big friend of Tywin. And
yes.
So the fact that he killed Tywin is also going to be a very serious demerit against him. So for all those reasons, I think he probably did the right thing to say no. But of course, all that then meant that the show came to an end, and then the next thing that was expected to happen did not happen because of Daenerys' intervention. She did not want innocent people fed to the lions. And Tyrion figured this all out. Tyrion wasn't told, you were really lucky today, you were supposed to be fed to the lions, but the queen saved you. But he figured out that that's what was happening, because Nurse was very surprised to see them back. And then he could hear the lion tamer say, well, they were supposed to be fed out there by dwarves. Well, I mean, he didn't say all that, but it was an orgy of evidence that they were supposed to be dinner for the lions.
Yeah, he discovered by the look on Nurse's face when Nurse saw them coming back that he'd never expected to see them again. And then he parsed out by what the lion tamer said that that the lions were still hungry. And
he doesn't know that it was Dany that saved him, though.
No. He knows that the lion tamer said the queen owes them their meal or whatever.
True.
But Tyrion does pick up on the irony of setting lions
onto
on
a
him,
Lannister.
as
Yes.
in Westeros. Yes, everyone holds on to that sigil so dearly.
Mhm.
But he never conveyed this to Penny, the lion plan.
Well, he's nice to Penny. He protects her
Yeah,
from a lot.
that's where I was going. He gets frustrated by Penny's persistent, naive optimism, and he
Yeah.
thinks it kind of reminds him of Sansa, but that she's more worldly and older than Sansa when Sansa first arrived in King's Landing. We know that Sansa certainly had her eyes open since then. But like you were saying, so in this book, A Dance with Dragons, there's often this concept of Dark Tyrion, a more negative view of the world. We've seen him treat women poorly at times. But when it comes to Penny, you can see that there is still some remaining care for innocence, because he wants to shake her when he can hear her praying, or when she says absurdly optimistic things and say, "It won't all be okay. Nobody will save us. The worst is yet to come." But he can't bring himself to do it. Instead, he pats her on the shoulder or gives her a hug.
Yeah.
Or
And
something along
in this
those
chapter,
lines.
tells her that Sweets will look after Crunch and Pretty Pig, which Sweets will, along with all the other soldiers.
Yes. It's pretty awful for Penny that, she's really...
Yeah.
Those are the last...
I think she's going to figure it out. Maybe not, because you're right. She is just so relentlessly positive that she probably is going to... But she's going to be heartbroken nevertheless, because she's going to lose them. There's clearly no way back to them. Even if you think they're being looked after, these were your pets and your livelihood.
Yes, and the last connection she has to her brother Oppo,
yeah, true.
And her, her father and her life previous to all this.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to mention, since we're talking about the events that take place in the fighting pit, is that it appears Tyrion knows his dragon lore much better than Barristan, because Barristan had told Missandei that Missandei didn't have to worry about the scorpions that were being set up outside, because no dragon had ever been taken down in flight, even though it has been tried. But Tyrion, he knows that is mostly true, but he also knows that the only vulnerable spot on a dragon is its eye, which is exactly how Meraxes was killed with Rhaenys Targaryen. But he does think that the scorpion and crossbow bolts are useless against Drogon otherwise. But Barristan, in his chapter, he thinks about, or mentions, I can't remember which, but the hand-thrown spears had penetrated the dragon's scales, and that's likely due to age. He's a young,
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. He's juvenile and the scales aren't hard yet.
Yeah.
So Drogon has to be very careful. So I actually think these scorpions are going to be very effective against Drogon if he does fly back. So he needs to be super careful.
Right. And Tyrion hasn't seen the dragon, so he probably doesn't have an idea of how young or old Drogon is.
Right. Good point. Yeah. So the trio, Tyrion, take advantage of the situation to go back towards Yezzan's tent via the Second Sons.
Yes.
And it's interesting that they're taken into the tent of Brown Ben, and he tells everyone, right, lock this down, nobody knows they're here, kind of thing, because he's already interested in what's going to happen. And Tyrion rightly surmises that Brown Ben knows who Tyrion is, because that's why he bid on him and knows what his head is worth. And then Tyrion makes the case, well, don't take my head, because Cersei will just deal false with you. She won't believe it's my head. Instead, take me into your service. Maybe we can go back to Westeros together, something like that.
Yeah. All that depends on Brown Ben not deciding to take the faster payoff and just return them to Yezzan and say, I caught these slaves trying to escape. I
wouldn't take Yezzan's coins at this point, not from his hand.
That's
anyway.
true. I'll take the ones at the far end of the pile there. Yeah, they will, like we were saying, though, you mentioned it earlier, they're going to have to stay hidden in the Second Son's tents, and the men are going to have to keep quiet. And Jorah, you remove Jorah's collar, he's just a guy who's beaten up, but eventually his face hopefully will heal too.
Yezzan's men will probably have forgotten what Jorah looks like.
Yes, true. But Penny and Tyrion are just too distinguishable. They will really actually have to hide in a tent. And, Brown Ben is getting a second crack at acquiring Tyrion. But I was thinking he had to decide between taking Tyrion back to Westeros to Cersei or trying to get him into Marine to Dany. But you brought up a third point that they could sail back to Westeros together and not go to the Red Keep and meet with Cersei. I think that's what you were getting at, right?
I sort of was. What I meant was, if Tyrion convinces Brown Ben to go back to Westeros, ostensibly to give him to Cersei to claim his lordship and cost Tyrion his life, Tyrion lives to fight another day. On that journey, he can woo Brown Ben to his side and then perhaps usurp Cersei when he gets there. Yeah. And we know what's going on in King's Landing. She's in no position to give this lordship out anyway. So
true.
This third path would come to fruition for Tyrion, I think.
Yeah, I do wonder what Kevin would do if Brown Ben Plum shows up and Kevin Lannister is the king regent, or
that's interesting because you got to wonder what Kevin thinks about all of the nonsense thrown at Tyrion. He knows it's pretty much locked tight that he killed Tywin.
Yes, that is, and yes, he might not fully agree that Tyrion killed Joffrey, but there's no doubt that Tyrion killed Tywin. Yeah. So
and I was going to say he had to do it to escape King's Landing, but he went out of his way to do it.
Yes, we definitely did.
Yeah, that's all true. Yeah.
So it probably wouldn't go well with Kevin either, specifically because he killed his older brother. But it's a
good point. I hadn't really thought it through, but you're right. Imagine Tyrion's face when he's like, Cersei's been ousted. Oh, Kevin, good. That's Kevin. Worse. That's worse.
But yeah, so what is the ultimate goal? Is it to get to Dany then? Is that what his ultimate plan is?
That's kind of where I smell the story going, and this might be because I read it, I don't know. But I feel like the story is heading towards Brown Ben switching sides again.
Yeah. So you have to assume Tyrion does say, I've heard you've turned your cloak twice, a man after my own heart.
Right.
So clearly he knows that he was on Dany's side and now isn't on Dany's side. Back up one more step. He wasn't on Dany's side. Then he was on Dany's side. Now he isn't on Dany's side.
Exactly.
So it's not an ideal choice, but he doesn't really have a lot of other choices for protection or escape at this point. So
yeah, and actually, he mentions Bronn and Shagga and Timett. That is interesting if you think about it, because again, coming back to the Lannisters' words, almost nobody gets anything out of interaction with the Lannisters, other than the Lannisters.
Right.
But they did. I mean, those three succeeded, and their lives got better.
Yeah.
For their interaction and working with Tyrion. But think about people who work with Cersei.
Oh, I mean, not good. Doesn't end well usually.
I mean, Felice Stokeworth, jeez.
Oh, yeah. So far it's working out okay for Qyburn, but that's because Qyburn can provide something she needs.
But he's also ousted from the small council. He's already diminished from where he got to because of her. That's Bronn, true. Shagga, and Timett are all better off than they've ever been,
Yeah. That's all true. Do you think... So Dany's looking for sellswords. She told Barristan, go out and try and recruit some sellsword companies to our side. I'm not sure this is one of the groups she would welcome back.
No, for sure. Last choice, yeah.
I wonder if Tyrion and Jorah's presence would help or hurt in possible negotiations in such a
I think they can only help, because Brown Ben by himself is never going to be welcomed back. But this one friend who really deep down is a friend, because look how broken he is when you cast him aside, and one, my enemy, but he's also my enemy's enemy, so possibly my friend.
Yes.
So yeah, I definitely think there's potential there for this to break through that animosity.
Yeah. Without Dany around, though, it's Barristan that they would be dealing with. I wonder, how
But
Barristan
again,
would feel.
that might help. I mean, Barristan and Jorah weren't best buddies, but I think there was a bit of mutual respect there.
Yeah, except for when they both realized that that they knew the other one had been deceiving Dany.
Yeah. So how did Jorah know Brown Ben Plum's cohorts? Why was he familiar with them?
Well, it's not completely clear, but I think it's assumed that when Brown Ben and the Second Sons were originally part of Yonkai's host when Dany was sieging Yonkai, and then they changed sides to Dany after Dany defeated the Yonkai, that they rode with Dany. Brown Ben Plum and his men and his Second Sons rode with Dany, and Jorah was still with Dany at the time. So I believe that's where they crossed paths.
Okay, so yeah, I'd forgotten. It makes perfect sense that he would have met them while the Second Sons were allied with Daenerys. I was under the maybe misapprehension, but possibly true, that Jorah had become familiar with the Second Sons before he ever met Daenerys, because he was a sellsword in his early days in Essos, and I thought he might have met them and known them from those days.
Yes, that is very possible as well. Yeah. It's not clear, so we're just conjecturing, but
you're
somewhere along those lines.
All right. I think that's good then.
Yeah. Let's move on, shall we?
Yeah, let's do it. It's time for some spoilers. If you join us at the upper tiers of our Buy Me a Coffee Sustainer levels, you get the spoilers. And if you want to just try them out for a week, it's free. All right, good. We're running out of spoilers because we don't have that much left to spoil.
Yeah. Well, there's only one. I think there's one more Tyrion chapter in this book, and then there's a preview Tyrion chapter that I did give a little background info from in Winds of Winter, but I don't.
I like it when you say in the released winds.
In the released winds, exactly.
All right, how about some background?
All right. Well, Tyrion mentions that Ben is likely the ancestor of a younger son of Viserys Plum, and that somehow a 6-foot-long manhood was involved.
Mm-hmm.
He also correctly guessed that Dany's dragons took a liking to Ben. So we've talked about Ben's ancestry in the past, but it's a good time to bring it up again. So let's start with Viserys Plum. Who is Viserys Plum? And what does he have to do with a 6-foot-long manhood? And why does Tyrion think that Ben has more than one drop of Targaryen blood in him? Okay, so Viserys Plum was the son of Ossifer Plum, the head of House Plum during the reign of King Aerys I Targaryen. Now, Lord Ossifer was an old man when he wed the much younger Princess Aelena Targaryen. And poor old Ossifer is said to have died during the bedding when he saw his wife naked for the first time. Yet, his wife still managed to get pregnant. However, rumors actually spread that Ossifer died before the marriage was ever consummated. Therefore, he must have had a 6-foot-long manhood.
Because he was under the ground.
The job done. Yes, because he was buried. Yes.
I got you.
Although most believe that it was actually Elena's cousin, the future King Aegon IV Targaryen, who fathered the child. That would make for 2 drops of Targaryen blood, not just one, in their child. And that child was Viserys Plum, meaning that Viserys was a full-blooded Targaryen. So, now I want to get to something we skipped over, and our listeners who are familiar with the chapter are probably like, why didn't you bring this up at all in the discussion? Because I wanted to get to that background first. So one thing that Tyrion says to, and we discussed it in the summary, says to Ben is that all these things, that he is likely the ancestor of Viserys Plum, and that he has more than one drop of Targaryen blood in him. And so we've discussed the possibility in the past that Ben and his Targaryen blood might play a bigger role in the story. do we think we're being set up for Ben to be a dragon rider? Is that why this keeps coming up, that the dragons take a liking to Ben and that Ben has full Targaryen blood in him at some level? I mean, not pure at his, by his birth, but that he does have more Targaryen blood than he even thinks he had.
She might want people more loyal to her to be her other dragon riders.
Yes.
That's one thing I would say.
It could be very dangerous trusting a guy with such dubious loyalty with a dragon.
Yes. But I guess maybe at that point he's invulnerable, so he can do what he wants to do rather than what expediency suggests he should do. Yeah,
well, possibly it's why they make such a big point of showing his lack of loyalty, that he left Yunkai for Dany, then left Dany for Yunkai. So to make it, to add drama to this situation. Can she trust him with a dragon? But speaking of that, Quinta Martell also has Targaryen blood. Might he be the other head of the dragon? Dany made a point of showing him that
he look like it.
You're right. He did not look like he was.
But to be fair, neither really did Brown Ben. They were like, they look out of control. Let's get out of here.
Yeah, neither does Dany most of the time.
That's a good point.
She is in control either.
All right, excellent. Good background. Comparison with the television show, there's no Penny. There's no Brown Ben Plum. Jorah ends up in the fighting pits, and actually I think he's fighting when the dragon comes. So
yes, I do vaguely remember him being in the fighting pit.
This has all gone completely different at this point. So
yeah,
no real
Tyrion's
comparison.
Story is so different at this point.
Yeah.
When we started that.
But I actually think that what happens in the show is coming. That's the thing. I mean, if I'm allowed this is TV spoiler. I don't know this is coming. But basically he ends up as an advisor to Daenerys. And I still think that's what's going to happen here.
Right. Yeah. I think it's very possible that that's the road we're headed down. But when we started comparison with the TV show, one of my first thoughts was, it'll be really fascinating when we get to the Dance with Dragons Tyrion chapters, because it's so vastly different between the TV show and the book.
I don't have any pedantry, unless you have something interesting.
Nope, nothing struck me.
News and notes.
Well, we've got even more news about a finished A Song of Ice and Fire related writing project.
You can't do this every week. Yeah?
I won't. Right? I won't tease you this time. That was just mean of me. But it does seem that Andor and House of Cards writer Beau Willimon, I think is how you pronounce his last name, has turned in a finished script to Warner Brothers for a feature film centered around Aegon the Conqueror, at least according to leaks and sources from various news outlets. It's said to be a mammoth Dune-sized film. And as exciting as that is, there's a couple complications surrounding it that I need to mention. The first is the sale of Warner Brothers to Paramount. Who knows what the effect of that might be. But the other is really fascinating. While Willimon is writing for Warner Brother Films, it is also widely known that writer Madison Tomlin is writing scripts for an Aegon the Conqueror TV show for Warner Brothers. So it would seem that there are rival Aegon the Conqueror related projects in the works at Warner Brothers.
What could possibly go wrong? Yeah.
Yeah. We'll end up with neither.
Yeah. Well, yeah, if Beau Willimon is the Andor guy, then that makes me clutch my heart in excitement, because Andor was terrifically done.
I'm right there with you. That was my first thought.
I actually worry that Aegon the Conqueror is too big of a story. We should find, right. He should make the movie of Balerion the Black Dread, but not the dragon, the cat.
Make it one of the greatest TV shows of all time.
Exactly. And we've got two new Buy Me a Coffee sustainers. Phil and the great Fabini have joined us. Phil's great too. Have joined us at the landed night level. Thank you both so much. We look forward to interacting with you, getting to know you both better.
Yes, thank you both so much. I do have to say I'm a little late in putting them in here. What happens is when we get someone who's doing the free trial, I get notified that they have started the free trial. Right. But I don't mention that in case...
Because they might just be doing the free trial.
Yes. But I don't get notified,
if they
when
stick around.
Yes, so I went back and looked, and I was saying, I realized, wait, we never mentioned either of these.
Right.
So there you go.
Thank you, Phil, and the great Fabini. We appreciate you both.
Absolutely. That we do.
All right. So let's conclude this one. A glimmer of hope for the trio. I mean, more than a glimmer. I mean, right now, I think what's going to happen in the next few minutes for them is they're going to have their collars removed, and they're going to play a game of Sivas while getting some clean water and some wine down them.
Hopefully clean water. I'd want to use my own. Well, I don't know, actually, if I want to use those pails that came from Yezzan's camp. They took advantage of a golden opportunity that, and hopefully they won't get caught. Brown Ben Plum is not trustworthy. Will he keep their secret?
He'll do the thing that profits him the most. There's definitely profit in giving them up, but there's maybe a lot more profit in keeping them.
Yes, it depends on if he can see the long-term gain. And it seems by the end of the chapter like he's willing to play ball here. And speaking of the chapter, it itself doesn't have a great deal of momentum, but it ends with the possibility of major change in their situation. So it might be setting up some great momentum.
I always think about momentum in the chapters, and I was thinking about this one having a lot of momentum leading up into the chapter. The chapter starts, and a whole bit of momentum has happened. Basically, their opportunity to get out has arrived because Yezzan is dying, and Nurse is dead. Those things happened before we even started the chapter.
Right. Yeah, it was kind of a lull. In the momentum.
The chapter we watched was just a slow trudge across the Yunkai camp. But
yes, it did update us on a lot, though.
Yeah, true. Tragedy for Penny. We're leaving Crunch and Pretty Pig behind is going to break her heart. And I'm not sure she's going to when it really dawns on her. You know, he appeased her by saying that Sweets would look after the animals, but over time, she's going to come to resent Tyrion for this, I think.
I think you're absolutely right. That, like we mentioned earlier, they are her last connection to her previous life and her happy life with her brother. And she's pretty well attached. She's traveled from King's Landing all the way to the walls of Meereen with them. And who knows how long before. Yeah. So they're like family to her. So that this would be pretty brutal. I feel for her. I really do.
Yeah, me too. Brown Ben Plum he's likable but rakish. But he's also only been a side character thus far. It feels like he might be coming more and more into focus here. And if he has got 2 drops of Targaryen blood in him, that does create some opportunities for where this story might go.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of talk of his connection to dragons. Could be nothing. Could be setting us up for something more. We'll have to see. But Meereen is becoming a major powder keg. Right as we thought, right as it seemed like everything was supposed to be calming down, Dany had married Hisdar. Peace was negotiated. Everybody should be taking a breath, and the Yunkai should be packing up and heading back home. Now it's a major powder keg. Both sides think that Dany is dead. Does this mean that a new war is now inevitable?
Yeah. If it feels like it, if Tyrion's intel is right, that 1/3 of the Yunkaish camp want to wait for the Volantines and then join in the pillaging of Meereen when the Volantines arrive, and 1/3 want to get ahead of that, and 1/3 don't want it to happen, then this is not over, not by a long shot, unless the bloody flux really kills everyone. That's the only hope for Meereen, I think.
Right, yeah. And men like Yezzan, who had been advocating for peace, are dying. Yeah. So that is a big, powerful voice right there that will be lost.
Yeah.
So with that war possibly looming, might they yet again have gone from the frying pan into the fire? Will they find themselves in the war? Will Jorah be on the front lines of an actual war here? I don't know if Tyrion would be on the front lines or not. He was in the battle at the Green Fork.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's possible.
I will say, I don't think that situation has changed very much for them. If they stay within the Yunkaish camp and war breaks out, it doesn't really matter who you are. They're going to be picking up swords. Mormont for sure.
Mormont for sure.
Yezzan
right.
might look after his grotesquerie, but Mormont would be fighting as soon as this war breaks out. Doesn't matter
That's true.
which company he's within.
But maybe war won't break out because Hizdar's loyalties to Dany are unproven, and Qaggaz says he's going to throw the gates open, and he could do so in the name of peace. There's a huge force outside. We can't prevent them from getting in, so I'm opening the gates.
But if that huge force is getting decimated, then maybe his calculation will change by the time the Volantines arrive.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Make the Volantines camp out there amongst the bloody flux and see if they still want to siege the city.
Right. Sure you don't want to turn around and head home? Right. There's a lot of boar on the Isle of Cedars. They
and they do not know about humans.
Right.
All right. Next week we have a Jon back to the wall. That'll be exciting. We'll be so hot by then, Mackelly, that it'll be nice to be cooled off.
Back and forth we go. Our skin's going to really start cracking here from the hot and cold.
There's 3 ways that you can help us out. You could leave us a positive review and a 5-star rating. You could buy us a cup of Arbor Gold at buymeacoffee.com/ghostsharrenhal. There you can become a sustainer of any of the various levels, as Phil and the Great Fabini did. There's a tier to match your budget and interest. The upper tiers get you the spoilers, and you can try any tier for free for a week. Or you can donate directly to our cause through our website, ghostsofharrenhal.buzzsprout.com.
And if you're looking for more ways to interact with us, well, one thing you could do is you could send us a text. The link is at the top of every episode's show notes. Please just keep in mind we don't have a means of responding, but we do enjoy reading them. And if you're interested in keeping up on the latest Ghosts of Harrenhal news and developments, well, I suggest you check us out on our social media. You can follow us on Twitter at Ghosts Harrenhal. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Discord, and YouTube.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.